My dear students of class 10A and 10B, now I am going to introduce a new lesson, the First World War. The First World War. Now, what is known as the First World War? Why is it called the First World War? It is called the First World War because in the earlier wars, the civilian populations were not involved. But in this war, the war was fought by the people as a whole, and thus the war marked the turning point in the history of the world. And because of its unprecedented extent, because of its impact, and because of the damage of property, damage of the lives of the people, and the nature and total nature, that's why this war is known as the First World War. That means this type of war was not fought never before. Because of its extent, because of its nature, because of its damage, total damage, this war is known as the First World War. And besides, in this war, various types of, sophisticated weapons were used for the first time, and affected almost all the countries of the world. That's why this is known as the First World War. Now, the concept of nationalism. What do you mean by the nationalism? Nationalism refers to the sense of unity. Nationalism refers to the sense of unity of the people who share a common identity, common culture, common language, and common culture, common history, and common identity. And in the latter half of the 19th century, this feeling of unity turned into extreme pride, and afterwards, this extreme pride made the people, made some countries of the world believe that their countries are superior to other countries. This led to the development of aggressive nationalism in Europe. Now, what is aggressive nationalism? Aggressive nationalism meant love for one's own country, sympathy and love for one's own country, and hatred for other countries. Hatred for other countries. This is known as aggressive nationalism. Each nation thought about its national interests and did not care for the interests of other countries. For example, France wanted to get back its territories Alsace-Lorraine from Germany. Similarly, Italy wanted to get back the territories, Italy's territory, Trieste from Austria. Similarly, Balkan states like Serbia wanted that their fellow nationals, Slavs, which lived in different areas there, who lived in other states, would come together and form a united Balkan state. But these countries developed extremist policies. These countries developed expansionist policies in the name of nationalism. So therefore, nationalism means military strength. Nationalism means military strength for the protection of one's own country and one's own sovereignty, and to protect and to increase national prestige. And every country began to increase her military power in the name of nationalism. And next one, the concept of imperialism. One country, after making them powerful by means of increasing their weapons, increasing their political power, increasing their military power. They followed a policy of expansion. That means these expansionist policies help them to be imperialist. That means as a result of it, it gave the birth of the concept of imperialism. Now, what is imperialism? Imperialism means a powerful country would establish control over other countries who were inferior to them and would rule them, would take advantages from them, from that country, their natural resources, their agricultural lands, and everywhere they would take advantages from them by way of establishing their military rule over there. This is known as imperialism, and this imperialistic policy helped different countries of Europe to make their colonies over East Asia, Africa, and Europe. And now the aggressive nationalism. The aggressive nationalism led to the rise of imperialism. So how does the concept of imperialism come? Because of the aggressive nationalism. It gives the birth of it gives a birth. The concept of imperialism gives a birth. Aggressive nationalism gives a birth of the concept of imperialism. Aggressive imperialism, that means a system by which powerful nation would establish their political and military control over inferior country or comparatively weak countries, and takes advantage by making political pressure and by making by demanding their by making them their colonies. And these colonies were governed and administered by the imperial nation. As afterwards, the imperial nations exploited the resources of these colonies and agricultural land, trading ports, everywhere they take its advantages, and ultimately this country would become the colonies of the powerful countries of Europe. By the end of 19th century, England and France had built up many colonies over Asia, Europe, and Africa. But British imperialism was focused on maintaining the expanding trade by exploiting the resources of its colonies. As a result of this, the British had established so many colonies in Asia, Africa, and Europe, like India, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Egypt, South Africa, Caribbean islands. These all were the British colonies. Even America also once upon a time became the British colonies. Africa also had become the British colony, and by taking advantages of these colonies, from these colonies, its natural resources, it flooded the large market. The finished products of England flooded the large market of Asia, Europe, and Africa, and then it became powerful financially, and politically, socially, culturally. Britain became very powerful. Britain's imperial power was reinforced. Britain's imperial power was reinforced. Why and how? Because by her powerful and world's largest navy. Because Britain is a country very powerful. Britain is a country has a powerful naval, a very naval power. Britain is a country having very powerful for its navy because of its world's largest navy. Some other countries of the world like Germany, Italy, Japan, Russia, they also started occupying other countries, comparatively weak countries of the world, by way of following the policy of expansion. So because of their expansionist policies, Japan, Russia, Italy, Germany, they also made so many colonies, and It was due to the growth of industrial revolution in England, and it was due to the finished products. It was due to the rapid growth and production of finished rapid production from factories and industries, from machines, and it is due to the excessive demand of finished products for finished products. That's why every country of Europe, they remain busy in occupying or in making colonies over Asia, Africa, and Europe in order to continue trade, in order to make them rich, prosperous, and wealthy. And these colonies were essential for their progress, for their for the raw materials they needed, the raw materials of from these colonies. That's why these raw materials where they acquired colonies helped them to increase their power and prestige. And this power and prestige, due to this power and prestige, led to a clash of interest among different countries of Europe. Ultimately, the countries of Europe, like Asia, countries of different countries of Europe, like England, France, Italy, Germany, Russia, and from Asia, Japan, they all started utilizing the resources, natural resources of other countries, where they established their colonies by way of following the policy of expansion. So these expansionist policies of different countries of Europe, Europe made so many colonies in Asia, Africa, and Europe in order to increase their powers, in order to increase their prestige, and as a result of it, it led to a class of interest among these countries of Europe. The European powers began to scramble for expanding their economic and political empire. Apart from this, aggressive nationalism and fierce economic competition filled the atmosphere with fear, mutual hatred, and international tension. People felt convinced that international problems could only be solved through militarism, because each and every countries of the world, they remain busy in increasing their political power, in increasing their military power, and as a result of it, their scientists discovered so many sophisticated weapons in order to make their country powerful than others, because of the natural hatred and sympathy. Because sympathy for their own country, pride for their own country, but hatred for other countries. This concept gave a birth of aggressive nationalism. And due to this concept of aggressive nationalism, so many countries of Europe, they got themselves involved in making fierce competitions among each other in order to establish their political control over Asia, Europe, and Africa, for establishing their colonies. First, the process was started by England. England established so many colonies in Asia, Europe, Africa, India, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, Caribbean islands, America, and so many countries of Europe, Asia, and Africa. They had become the colonies of England, and England started utilizing its natural resources, its raw materials, in order to meet the growing demand of its industries and factories, because due to industrial revolution, so many factories and industries were established throughout England. Ultimately, England became one of the most powerful countries of Europe, and ultimately the other countries also followed the footsteps of England. Who were they? They were Italy, they were Japan, they were Russia, these countries were Japan, Italy, Russia, Germany. They all started establishing their colonies over Asia, Europe, and Africa one by one in order to increase their prestige, in order to increase their power, financial stability, and in order to utilize the raw materials of different countries of Asia, Europe, and Africa. As a result of it, there came a fierce competition among themselves in order to safeguard their interests of their own nation's own country. And as a result of it, it created an atmosphere fish up out of water. The political gave a birth of political tension, mutual hatred, misunderstanding, and as a result of it, it alarmed the Great War, the First World War, because it created an atmosphere and also gave a birth of an introduction of a war named the First World War. The war which had not, this type of war had not destroyed a large property and large, a maximum number of lives of people before that. That's why they extend the damage and the damage of property, extent of the war. For that reason, and besides the involvement of the people and populations named it the First World War. That's why the First World War started because of the misunderstanding among different European nations, different countries who wanted to make them powerful financially, politically, and militarily. And as a result of it, there came a fierce competition among them in the name of nationalism. The aggressive nationalism created an atmosphere. There was no mutual understanding, but mutual hatred. There was no cooperation for each other. Everyone remained busy in safeguarding their own interests. As a result of it, it paved the way of such a war, the First World War, which started later by the first half of the 20th century. The First World War took place later on. I shall discuss about it. Thank you, my dear students.